Have you ever seen the look in your child's eyes when the whole family looks down on her? It's not just a missed birthday present or a forgotten party. It's a childhood denied, an existence ignored, a self-esteem eroded by those who share her blood. My daughter grew up feeling like she was the extra one in the family, a pale shadow at gatherings, holidays, or relatives' birthdays. Every gift given to her cousins, every compliment, every affectionate look. There was room for everyone, except her. But you know what the worst part was? I used to stay silent. I used to think, I'll just endure it. Until one day I saw my daughter quietly leave the party table holding back her tears in the bathroom just because her grandmother bought gifts for all the grandchildren, except her. And that day I decided, I would not let my child grow up in silence for another day. Welcome to Judgy Tales, where seemingly small stories reveal the biggest things. Emotions, morality, self-respect, and the ultimate limit of tolerance. This is where each video is a journey, from hurt to revenge, from being looked down upon to reclaiming the value that is worthy. In today's episode, you will hear the true story of a mother who witnessed her child being treated as invisible by her entire family. They laughed, cheered on other children, but always left her out. They thought she was nobody, until the day the mother quietly formulated a plan that stunned her relatives. She turned her daughter into the most powerful person they could ever imagine, the new owner of the family business. Today's story is not just about revenge, but also a lesson about protecting the one you love, about self-respect, and above all, a turnaround moment that will make you exclaim, "Serves you right." Or listen. Balance scale, judge. Speech balloon, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. This is Judgy Tales, a place to expose the most real, dramatic, and judgmental stories on the internet. My name is Rachel Green, a 38-year-old single mom living in Portland, Oregon. I felt like I've been swimming upstream most of my life, especially when it comes to family. My daughter, Emily, just turned 16, and she's the reason I wake up in the morning. She's quiet, sophisticated, mature beyond her years, and the strongest person I know, though she may not know it herself. Emily's father, Darren, left me the moment I told him I was pregnant. We were high school sweethearts, or so I thought. But as soon as I said, "I'm pregnant," he froze, cursed, and walked out of the apartment. I never heard from him again. Darren's family, especially his mother, were no different. They made it clear that they wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. I was 21, alone, panicked, and completely at the bottom of everyone's minds. I moved back in with my parents, John and Meredith Green, in their spacious old house in the suburbs. They were successful businessmen who owned a small but successful chain of home improvement stores on the West Coast. They let me stay, but they never let me forget that I had ruined my life and brought shame to the family. I have two older siblings, my brother Michael and my sister Jennifer. Michael is the golden child, an Ivy League graduate who runs the family business and lives in a mansion with a beautiful wife and a beautiful child. Jennifer is the free-spirited type, now a yoga influencer who travels all over the world. Me. I've always been the black sheep of the family, the one who wasted potential and brought home a burden. As a child, my parents were strict but fair, or so I thought. After Emily was born, the discrimination became more obvious. I saw how differently they treated Michael and Jennifer's grandchild than they did my daughter. For Christmas, other kids got iPads, designer clothes, and one year even a trip to Disneyland. Emily, sometimes it was just a sweater, sometimes nothing. What hurt the most wasn't the gifts. It was the marginalization. The family photos that Emily got cut out of. The dinners where she was ignored. The birthdays where everyone was busy. She was almost invisible. I tried to shield her from it, but kids aren't stupid. He knew. And she hurt little by little. Even so, Emily grew up to be a girl I admired. She was at the top of her class, volunteered at the animal shelter, and learned to code on YouTube on the weekends. She had dreams, big ones. And I vowed that no one would extinguish that light. I did anything to support her. Waitressing, reception, freelance accounting, just to pay the bills and give her a better chance. I saved every penny, and later opened a small online store that sold eco-friendly home goods. It was hard at first. I had to wrap my own groceries in my kitchen sink. But after a few years, I had customers all over the country and was interviewed by a local business magazine. My family was pretty much indifferent. When I told Michael about the article, he just said, "That's cute. You should sell through our store, maybe we can help you make some real money." That was Michael, Always arrogant, always contemptuous. He thought I needed help because in his eyes I was always the stupid little brother who had made a mistake. What he didn't know was that my company had just signed a distribution deal with a major eco-retail chain. I didn't need help. I needed respect. My sister Jennifer wasn't mean, but she was always in a higher realm. Retreats, meditation, detoxes. She once said to Emily, "Honey, I think your energy would be better if you smiled more." Emily just nodded, but I could tell she was hurt. And my parents? They were masters of the silent cold. No harsh words, but always with hidden meaning. My mother would say, "Are you still working at that little online shop? Michael can get you a steady job as a receptionist." They all sat around the long dining table, dressed to the nines, laughter filling the room. When it was time to give out the presents, each grandchild was called up to receive them. The others were given remote-controlled planes, expensive shoes, even tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. Emily. No one called her name. She just sat there, smiling awkwardly, pretending not to see anything. My heart broke. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw not sadness or disappointment, but resignation. It was too familiar. And I knew, this couldn't go on. I didn't sleep that night. I opened my laptop, made phone calls, and revised the contract. I began to put the finishing touches on a plan I had been hatching for over a year. If my family didn't see the value in my daughter, I would show them how wrong they were. The next time they saw Emily, she wouldn't be the ignored grandchild in the corner. She would be their boss. The day Emily was forgotten by my family at the Christmas party was a moment I will never forget. But it wasn't just the end of suffering. It was the beginning of transformation. That night, as everyone was drunk and saying goodbye to each other to the sound of holiday music, I sat in the car, still holding my daughter's hand. Emily didn't cry, but her silence broke my heart more than any scream. I turned to her and said, "They'll have to stand up for you someday." Emily just smiled and nodded as if she didn't believe me. But I did. And I had a plan. You see, I'm not just a single mom with an online store. I've been quietly growing my brand for the past 6 years. From a small shop selling recycled goods, I expanded it into a full-fledged e-commerce platform specializing in distributing eco-friendly household products. I signed on with suppliers from all over, from co-ops in California to eco-tech startups in Austin. I built a team of freelance designers, marketers, and logistics people working remotely. And a few months ago, I signed my first contract to open a physical showroom, right here in downtown Portland. But here's the interesting thing. My family's furniture chain, where Michael is CEO, is in deep trouble. I know because I'm still in touch with a former employee who used to work in their buying department. She told me they were having major supply chain problems, sales were down, and younger customers weren't interested in their old-school style. She said, "Rachel, if you open a showroom that's as good as your online store, you're going to kill them." I'm not trying to kill anyone. But I'll make one thing clear. If they look down on me and my daughter, they'll have to watch me step into a position they think I never deserved. A few weeks after Christmas, I held a private soft opening for my new store. No fanfare. Just an invitation to a few interior influencers, local architects, and a few newspapers. Emily was the MC. She was nervous at first, but when she stood in front of the crowd, her eyes lit up. Her voice was steady, confident. I saw not just a little girl who had been forgotten by her family, but a leader growing up. 3 weeks later, I received an email from a very familiar address. michael.green@greenestylefurnishings.com. It was just one line. "Rachel, would you like to talk about a supply partnership?" Michael. I laughed. After all these years of treating me like a burden, he needed me. I responded, inviting him to the showroom to talk in person. But I didn't tell him that Emily would be there, as director of brand development. I wanted him to see her sitting across from me in a room they'd never let her into. The day of the meeting came and Michael walked into the store in a smart suit and his trademark, "I know what you need" smile. He looked around, his eyes wide with surprise at the professionalism of the showroom. Then his eyes fell on Emily, who was already sitting in the conference room, opening her laptop and preparing her presentation slides. "Hi, sister," Michael said. "She works here." I smiled. Emily is the director of brand development. She leads all communications and customer recognition. Michael paused for a moment. "Oh, well, that's impressive." The meeting was tense but polite. Michael made a proposal. His chain would buy some of my product lines wholesale to incorporate into their system as part of a sustainable transformation strategy. But I declined. We're expanding our independent chain, I said. I don't want to be a subsupplier to a system that doesn't align with my vision. Michael lost his cool for a moment. Rachel, this is your opportunity to enter a big market. You shouldn't let your personal feelings get in the way of your business. I smiled and turned to Emily. What do you think? Emily looked straight at Michael. I think it's important that our brand maintains integrity. We choose our customers as carefully as they choose our products. The words were a soft but powerful punch. Michael bowed his head, nodded, and then withdrew after a few pleasantries. A week later, I received an email from my mother. Rachel, I agree. But this time I didn't come with my head bowed. We arrived on time. Emily wore a light gray suit, her hair tied back, and carried her laptop. Dinner began with small talk and awkward compliments. Then my dad said, "We're thinking about opening a new branch in Seattle. I think you and Emily would be perfect partners." I put down my wine glass. Dad, we're building our own empire. We don't need to put our name on something that no one has ever believed we had value in. The air grew cold. Jennifer shrugged. Come on, everyone has made mistakes. We're family now. Emily interrupted calmly. I've never been considered family. I turned to my daughter. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were burning. But I'm okay. Because now I've built my own world where I can be myself. No one can erase me from the family photo. The room was silent. And I knew. Everyone in the room understood that the balance of power had shifted. I remember clearly the day I decided to stop being silent. Looking at my daughter sitting quietly at the end of the family meeting table, her eyes downcast as if trying to hide the hurt of being ignored once again, I knew it was time for things to change. They, my blood relatives, no longer deserved my tolerance. They not only despised my daughter but also my value as a mother. Every contemptuous word, every sarcastic look over the years had now pushed me to the brink of suffering. I wasn't born into wealth, but I had worked hard for decades to build a technology company from scratch. When my husband died, I was a single mother and a businesswoman in a male-dominated industry. I had sacrificed everything to raise my daughter, Lily, to be a kind, intelligent, and compassionate woman. But my family never acknowledged that. They always compared her to her more successful cousins, who were spoiled and favored despite not trying hard enough in life. Every holiday they gave gifts to all the kids except Lily. They told me straight to my face that she doesn't fit in, that she's different from everyone else in the family. When Lily's birthday came, none of them texted or called to congratulate her. I ignored it many times, thinking that as long as I loved her and she was happy, that was enough. I was wrong. My daughter began to believe that she didn't deserve it. I saw her self-conscious, withdrawn, and the most painful thing was when she asked, "Mommy, why doesn't anyone in the family like me?" That was the moment I understood. I couldn't let this silence continue to destroy my daughter. So I started making plans. And I swore to myself, they would face the same contempt they had for me and my mother. I didn't say anything to anyone, not even to Lily. I quietly transferred ownership of the company to my name again, collecting all the small shares I had given to family members as investment gifts. I bought them back piece by piece, quietly without attracting attention. Then I started training Lily. Every night after school, I guided her through the basics of running a business. Cash flow, development strategy, leadership skills, how to handle difficult personnel situations. Lily learned surprisingly quickly. Not only did she understand, she also began to propose improvements within the company. She was no longer the overlooked child, but was gradually becoming a true leader. A year later, I held a big party to celebrate the company's 25th anniversary. I sent out formal invitations to every member of my family, those who had turned their backs on me and my mother. They came, convinced that this ceremony would be an opportunity to show off, to receive honors they had never contributed. Little did they know that the ceremony would be the stage for the most delicate and emotional revenge of my life. I stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, looking down at the familiar but fake faces. I told the story of my journey, of the sacrifices, the suffering, and the loneliness in building this business. Then I paused, turned, and smiled at my daughter. And today I present to you the new CEO of the company, Lily Anderson. The room fell silent. The name rang out like thunder in the blue sky. Mouths that had once criticized now gaped, speechless. They watched Lily, the girl who had been looked down upon, now stepping up to the podium with confidence and steadiness. I saw pride in my daughter's eyes, for the first time without a trace of hurt or fear. But I didn't stop there. I released a video made from the recordings and messages I had secretly collected over the years. It was evidence of the humiliation, discrimination, and prejudice against Lily. The malicious words that they thought no one would hear were now being played out in public in the luxurious hall. They had nowhere to hide. One by one they left the ceremony with pale faces, and I, for the first time, felt at peace. Not because of revenge, but because I had reclaimed my daughter's honor. Lily was no longer an invisible girl in their eyes. She was a winner, not needing to put anyone down, just rising up on her own merits. A few months later, many family members tried to reconnect, applying for jobs at the company with the excuse of wanting to unite the family. But I only responded with one sentence: "Send your application to the HR department. The CEO will review it." That was when they realized that the girl they had once despised was now the one who had the power to decide their fate. And for me, it was more than just revenge. It was justice. It was reclaiming my voice, my self-respect, and affirming that no one had the right to define my child's worth but her own. The consequences of my plan not only exceeded all expectations, but also exposed the truth that the family had tried to hide for years. When Emma walked into the office for the first time as CEO of the company, a position I had secretly left her through the terms of my will, no one in the family knew what was going on. They thought it was just a normal internal meeting. No one expected that day to completely change the order they had considered immutable. Emma walked in, graceful but authoritative, wearing the suit I had left for her in the office closet. I had told her that one day she would understand why I had always taught her management skills, taught her leadership from the smallest part-time jobs. Now that moment had come. Looking at the stunned looks on my family's faces, from my sister-in-law who had always looked down on me and my father to my cousin who had once said Emma was too useless to do anything, I knew I was right. Emma didn't retaliate with harsh words. Instead, she stood in the middle of the conference room, holding the appointment decision, and began to present her plan to restructure the company. Every detail was carefully prepared, every number, every strategy. No one in the room could argue. At that point, the murmurs began. Someone exclaimed, "No way." But I had made sure everything was legal, clear, and without a loophole. When Emma announced that the CEO title was the legal right of the founder, me, and that all the shares I own now belonged to her, silence fell over the room. Some people staggered away without saying goodbye. Some tried to salvage the situation by apologizing or making excuses. But it was all too late. Not only stopping at the company, Emma also took over the family's main house, a place that she was not allowed to enter during her childhood except on special occasions. When Emma moved there, the neighbors thought my family was selling the house. When they learned that the new owner was her abandoned niece, they could only shake their heads in surprise. People who used to sit at the top table at family parties now had to make an appointment if they wanted to meet the director. The feeling of witnessing each person bowing their heads before Emma's maturity, intelligence, and kindness was the greatest reward I left for my daughter. But Emma did not let revenge control her for too long. She started organizing scholarship programs for children rejected by their families, and set up a psychological support fund for those who had been hurt by their own relatives. When reporters asked why she chose that path, she simply replied, "I had a father who never let me forget that I was worthy of love. I want to do the same for others." My family, now each person carries a lesson within themselves. Some try to make amends, send letters, call, but Emma always keeps her distance. Not because of anger, but because she has learned to protect herself. I know that if I were alive, I would protect her with my life. But now, Emma is strong enough to do it herself. The end of the story is not the downfall of anyone, but the awakening. Sometimes the greatest loss is not wealth or power, but the loss of trust from someone who once considered you family. And sometimes the deepest revenge is quiet success and unexpected tolerance. I am no longer by Emma's side to witness each of her achievements. But I believe wherever I am still watching over her, smiling because I know that my final choice was the right one. To put my trust in the girl that the whole family once looked down on. The end of this story is not the end, but a warning. Never underestimate a person just because you don't see the strength inside them. Because one day when they stand at the top, you will be the one looking up. And when that happens, the only thing you can do is wish that you had treated them better when you still had the chance. Emma continued to assert her position not only within the company, but also in the media and the market. Her talent and determination made people gradually reconsider the way they used to treat her. Prestigious business magazines began to report on the young CEO, not because of the dramatic story behind it, but because of the way she ran and developed the company to new heights. Emma's success extends to the community. She supports small businesses run by women and provides management training for underprivileged young women. Emma always emphasizes, "I'm not here to retaliate. I'm here to build a world where neglected children have a chance to rise. My family is no longer a place to seek love. They are left with unanswered calls and unanswered messages." Emma chooses to remain silent, not because she is unforgiving, but because she understands that sometimes silence is the only way to maintain self-respect. I believe that if anyone in the family truly wants to change, they will have to start by changing themselves, not by waiting for Emma to open up first. And I know Emma is wise enough to recognize sincerity amid a myriad of empty apologies. The final lesson I leave behind is not in the material legacy, but in the journey Emma has gone through. A journey from a girl who was overlooked to an inspirational leader. Emma's story does not end in revenge, but opens with hope, that no matter how low we start, if we are resilient and kind, the world will eventually bow down. And perhaps, that is the greatest victory anyone should dream of. The story you just heard is not just a journey of revenge, but also a declaration of human values, of justice and self-respect. When a father chooses to believe in his daughter who was once considered invisible in her own family, he not only gives her power, he gives her confidence, he gives her the opportunity to prove her worth, in a world that once tried to push her aside. We all know the feeling of being looked down upon, undervalued, or worse, rejected by our own relatives. That is what makes this story so touching to many people's hearts. Because in each person watching this video, somewhere there may be an image of an Emma who was once hurt, once forgotten, once not invited to the family table, just because she was not perfect enough according to other people's standards. What makes the story special is the way Emma chooses to face it all. Not with resentment, not with cruel revenge, but with wisdom, quiet preparation, and deep tolerance. That is not only maturity, but also the pinnacle of inner strength and human dignity. But this is also the time for you, the viewers, to speak up. Because each person will have a different perspective, a different emotion when witnessing this story unfold like a true life novel. So we want to ask, backhand index pointing right, what do you think about the way the father quietly prepared everything for his daughter? Was he too extreme? Or was that the only right thing he could do when witnessing his family behaving so unfairly? Backhand index pointing right, if it were you, would you choose to silently take revenge like him? Or would you confront it directly early on? Or would you give up and leave so as not to be entangled with a family full of hurt? Backhand index pointing right, should Emma, in your opinion, forgive those who turned their backs on her? Was her keeping her distance, not replying to the apology letter, a proper act of self-protection or a sign of unresolved resentment? Backhand index pointing right, have you ever been an Emma in your own life? Someone who was underestimated, abandoned, considered useless, but then quietly grew up and made everyone look back? Backhand index pointing right, and if you were a member of that family, someone who used to sit at the top table at the party, who used to say, "That girl is nothing," how would you feel when one day you had to bow down to welcome someone who was once considered inferior to you, and now holds the entire destiny of the company and family? This story is not just to be heard and ignored. It's a reminder to all of us that the way we treat others, especially those who are less powerful or who have no voice, can have consequences that last for decades. And in many cases, silence, indifference, or contempt for others is what costs us the most precious things: trust, friendship, and dignity. Emma chose to stand up, not to make others suffer, but to affirm that she deserves to be heard, to be respected. And perhaps in a world as competitive and judgmental as today, people like Emma are symbols of a new generation. People who choose not blood revenge, but kindness that is stronger than any punishment. If you've made it this far, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to know who you identify with, where you disagree, or even, if you have a similar story, tell it. Because at Judgy Tales, we don't just tell stories, we create a space for people to judge, share, and empathize. Speech balloon, leave a comment. I am my own Emma. "My family used to be like this. I think the father did the right thing. Forgiveness is good, but distance is also necessary." And don't forget, every story you share in the comments section could be a comfort to someone else going through the same thing. So be brave and speak up. Lastly, remember, the greatest success is not in revenge, but in not letting your hurt turn you into a cold, cruel person. Emma won not just because she had power, but because she chose kindness when everyone expected revenge. So what would you choose if you were in that situation? Share with Judgy Tales, where every voice counts. Thank you for watching today's video on Judgy Tales. If you like the story and want to see more interesting videos, don't forget to like to support the channel. A like helps the video reach more people and helps us have more motivation to make quality videos for you. Subscribe to Judgy Tales today to not miss the drama, controversy, and emotional situations updated every week. When you subscribe, you will always receive the latest videos and can join in the lively discussions in our community. Especially, don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that every time there is a new video, you will be notified immediately. Life is busy, but with the notification bell, you will not miss any stories. We would love to hear your opinion. What do you think about today's story? Who do you agree with, or what would you do if you were the main character? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts and discuss positively. Finally, share the video with your friends and family so they can enjoy and reflect on the story too. Judgy Tales always welcomes new stories from you. Feel free to send us a message if you have a special story to share. Once again, thank you for joining Judgy Tales. Like, subscribe and turn on the bell now so you don't miss the next interesting stories.